Trump's going to intensify it, not in 50 days, but now in 10 days. And the situation all over the Palestinian territories, now with the West Bank burning, as well as Gaza incinerated, a mounting panic is being reached amongst Western world leaders who have colluded in all of it. It's coming up tonight, the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway. The mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway. The world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
I've been saying for some time, if I had to, I'd rather take my chances in front of a high court judge than any other institution in this land. And that was vindicated earlier today when the high court gave permission for a judicial review of the bizarre, barmy, and deeply sinister government decision, no, parliament decision, with only 36 MPs voting against it, to consider the, well, how shall I put it, not to be cruel, but to be as accurate as possible. Tree-hugging, peace-loving, porridge-eating, peaceful, non-violent, civil disobedience activists called Palestine Action. They have never hurt a lamb. They have never killed a fly. All they do is throw red paint on weapons that are destined for the massacre and the red blood of innocents in Palestine. Most sensible people, whilst not wishing to clamber through a factory roof themselves, most people with any kind of conscience would regard them as very British heroes. Most people would regard them as the kind of son or daughter that you would hope that you would raise. The kind of son or daughter who prefers red paint to red blood. That's what most ordinary people consider this kind of activism. It is a crime to damage a warplane, yes, but it is a far, far greater crime for that warplane, unannounced, secretly, to be serving a genocidal maniac like Benjamin Netanyahu, like Ben Gvir, like Smotrich, like the cluster of fascists not seen together since the Wannsee conference just outside of Berlin in the war years, in the Holocaust years. Most people in this country, more than 80% of them, are completely opposed to what is being done to the Palestinians in Gaza. Most people, 80% of them or more, do not approve of the British government's involvement in this great crime, in this new Holocaust. So the government has got a problem. No jury in the land would convict of terrorism a Harry that tried to do their best to stop mass murder in Gaza, which, I remind you, is the legal obligation on everyone, including every government in the world, who are legally bound to do anything that they can to stop genocide. Anyway, the government went ahead, despite the advice of sound minds, despite the advice of people who agree with the government's policy, but realize this is going to lead to mass arrests of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people, and included amongst them will be old ladies in dog collars who no jury in the world could possibly send to prison for terrorism, when all they were trying to do was peacefully disobey the government's unjust characterization of Palestine action as terrorists. Anyway, their eminences on the bench gave the green light today to an epic court battle that will now ensue, in which the justice, not the political spasm that led to only 36 MPs opposing this madness, but a review of the justice of this whole affair will now be conducted. And I'll tell you now, the government is bound to lose. To save the taxpayer money, to save the jail time of those already behind bars, because they know that they can't convict such people, so they keep them in prison for as long as possible, awaiting trial, so that the process becomes the punishment. They know they're going to be found not guilty and walk free, so some of them have been inside for 18 months, waiting for their day in court when they will surely be cleared. So, 2.5 cheers for the justices on the High Court bench. But when you've got a parliament like ours, when you've got police like ours, when you've got a BBC like ours, when you've got the civil servants like ours, when you've got a media like ours, when one after the other of your institutions have failed or turned into the opposite of their stated role in our society, you've got to be grateful to the British High Court. Now, Donald Trump was in town. He was in the country, but he was actually almost in my town. He was very, very close to me. The chattering of the flying fortresses, or whatever they call these double helicopters with two sets of choppers on them, were everywhere. The police were everywhere. The G-men were everywhere. It must have cost millions. Wait, it cost tens of millions for Donald Trump to come and play golf in Scotland on his own golf course as part of his bid to have Turnberry included in the World Open Golf Championships. I hope, by the way, a bid that is successful will be good for the local people, will be good for the local economy. But Donald Trump didn't half humiliate the British Prime Minister. And such is the odour in which the British Prime Minister is currently held, most people in Britain cheered it to the rafters. You know, I've called him everything. I've called him a block of wood in which the birds perch, a block of wood and the birds try to nest in him. I've called him the Tin Man. I've called him a robot, but never did he cut a more pitiful figure. And unwise of him, he brought his wife along to witness his humiliation at the hands of a visiting foreign leader who greeted him as if it was Starmer that was the visitor, and the kind of visitor that the cat drags in from time to time, if you'll get my drift. I mean, Trump might as well have put a dunce's cap on his head. He might as well have slapped him about his jowls. He might as well forced him onto his knees to kiss his shiny shoes. That's the truth of it. Not only was Starmer completely humiliated on issues like calling the mayor of London, thrice elected mayor of London, a repulsive little runt. Oh no, that was me that called him a repulsive little runt. I forget what Trump called them, but he called them names. And all that Starmer could muster in his defense was, actually, he's a friend of mine. his own party colleague, his own elected mayor of the capital city of the country, is being rubbished by a visiting foreign leader, and Starmer can't even stand up to defend him. But not only that, he made short shrift of Keir Starmer's claim to be in favour of free speech. So there's two insults. Sadiqkhan, the mayor, and then the lack of free speech in Britain, in which Donald Trump, the monster, was right, and Keir Starmer, the Labour Prime Minister, was wrong. Trump said that he was disturbed by the lack of free speech in Britain, by the ceaseless efforts of the British government to force censorship and tyranny on American tech companies who are protected in their own country by the First Amendment, a First Amendment made ludicrous in our country by a whole battery, from Ofcom to the Online Safety Act. Free speech is being murdered in plain sight in Britain. And again, all Starmer could muster was, we've had free speech for a long time in this country. Well, maybe we did. We actually had more free speech 100 years ago in Britain than we currently have today. And on it went. Immigration. Trump ridiculed the British. But I remind you, Trump was the foreign statesman visiting our country, not the other way round. Trump laid into Starmer about immigration, about the ways in which Europe as a continent was committing suicide, demographic suicide, and soon, one day, will not be Europe at all. Now, on all of these things, Trump has a substantial block of support in Britain for what he said. But even those must have felt humiliated for their own country to see their Prime Minister being treated like this. Well, Trump could not have written the speech that Keir Starmer then gave, because it was too bad to have been delivered by Donald Trump. It was too utterly confused, contradictory, looking in both ways, filled with double entendres, a promise wrapped in a condition, concealed in a deceit. I refer to the Prime Minister's promise or threat to recognize a Palestinian state in September. Why do these guys always wait till September? Because, of course, they probably aren't going to do it in September, but they'll get 4 or 5 weeks of publicity claiming that they are going to. But unlike Macron, Starmer put a condition on it. He said, I'm going to recognize a Palestinian state. Didn't say where, didn't say what kind of state, didn't say when it would happen. Something that he's not in control of in any case. But even then, he made it conditional. He said, I'll recognize a Palestinian state unless there's a ceasefire, unless I see evidence that Netanyahu is committed to, you never thought you'd hear these words again, the peace process. The peace process that for more than 25 years they pretended was going on, endless process, absolutely no peace, still less any justice. But then Netanyahu's government called an end to the peace process. Last week they annexed the West Bank. In the last 22 months, they have annihilated 1 in 5 of every Palestinian human being in the Gaza Strip, which has now been hit by the equivalent of 3 Hiroshima nuclear bombs. So he gave Netanyahu the out to say, sure, I'm committed to a peace process, and I'm trying to get a ceasefire, but it's these Johnnies down in the Gaza Strip. They won't stop hitting our occupation forces. Every day now, 2, 3, 5 of the occupying soldiers are being medevaced out, either to the hospital in Israel or straight to the morgue. And most people to whom Starmer was presumably speaking, presumably trying to appease people that are horrified by what's going on in Gaza, listened to Starmer's speech, thought about it for a minute, and either burst into tears or burst into laughter. I need to hurry up because I'm nearly out of time. I told you in the last show, maybe the one before that, how concerned I am by Donald Trump's physical and mental health. I'm looking at this kind of elephantitis, Ted Heath style, tree trunk ankles. I'm looking at that shake that he's got in his hand, the kind that Hitler had, visible to everyone in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. But more because I listen carefully to what Donald Trump says. And I have to listen every day because tomorrow it will be different from that he said today. In turn, different from that he said yesterday. He told Putin he had 50 days to end the war in Ukraine. He's just cut it to 10 to 12 days, which, if it's 10, is now only a little more than a week. After which, Trump is going to step up every part of America's war effort, Joe Biden's war effort. Trump is going to double down on every sinew of the war, from weapons supplies, intelligence supplies, and, of course, tariffs. He can't go a sentence without using the word tariffs. And then he said, actually, I don't want to talk to Vladimir Putin anymore. I don't want to call him. This is the art of the deal man, right? This is the peace president, the guy who's headed for the Nobel War Prize, Peace Prize. He doesn't want to talk to the president of the Russian Federation, who has so upset his wife, Melania, that the President of the United States no longer wants to talk to him, except today he announced that Melania really likes Vladimir Putin and they get on well together, and that he's looking forward to meeting with Putin. It's just as well the Russians don't pay as much attention to what Donald Trump says as I do, because if they did, that whistle you're hearing might be an incoming Iskander. It's all coming up tonight. I've got 2 great guests and some of the best calls you'll find anywhere on air, anywhere in the world. It's the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned. Let's go to our old friend Declan in Dublin, who's online too. Go ahead, Declan.
Right, George. There's a very big protest in the town of Taipei, the last Christian village on the West Bank. If they lose this, they are finished in the Holy Land. I'd like to take the chance to salute Francesca Albanese, who is the greatest woman, I think, of our generation. And the hope is that there are other Francesca Albanese's out there who will do something, because the Western churches, the Catholic Church especially, and the other main churches are doing absolutely nothing for their co-religionists in the Holy Land, just like they did nothing for them in Syria or in Iraq.
They don't even talk about them, never mind do anything. And all these Christian politicians, and all these Christian leaders, and most of the Christian clergy haven't done or said even jack to come to their aid. They're not Christians, most of these politicians. When they say they're Christians, better count your spoons, or better still, count the burning Christian houses.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Here's the poll tonight. Will Trump pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? Duh. What else is he going to do? He's now claiming that the Democrats dropped his name in the Epstein files. It's beyond parody. If there was ever an open and shut case, it is that Donald Trump is up to his bollocks in the Epstein affair. Will Trump pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? He might have been up to his bollocks in her. Also, yes or no, you can answer Galloway, you can answer on X, you can answer on the YouTube community poll, or you can vote on the YouTube stream. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, please make sure you subscribe to my channel, give the thumbs up to the program, and tell all your contacts and friends that we are broadcasting at the highest level, stratospheric level. We're the Starlink of the kind of shows that we are putting on now, watched by millions every week. If you want to call the show, it's toll free in the US and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. It is free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 08081 965522, and the worldwide number 0044 203 9662625. So get calling, get voting. Now, my first guest this evening is an old comrade of mine with whom I travelled thousands of miles and then sat out in the desert at Aqaba for longer than I care to remember. I've given up taking convoys to Gaza, but John Hurson, the pride of Ireland, he's still going. He's just been there, raised £100,000 and went there, involving a bus, which used to be my speciality. I took a bus all the way from Big Ben to Baghdad in 1999. But John Hurson is still taking vehicles, still taking convoys, still taking aid to break the siege on Gaza. And I'm very glad to reacquaint myself with him now. John, wonderful to see you again. Tell us about your last mission, and then tell us about the mission you've got coming up.
George, good to see you again. And what we have done in Ireland here, I suppose, is a follow-through from our convoy days and bringing the vehicles and medical vehicles and the aid to Gaza. And what it is we came across a charity there, Palestine Aid in the UK, my brother Julu and Leila, and he was getting ambulances and mobile clinics built in Cairo, and they're getting lined up to go into Gaza at the earliest opportunity. As you know yourself, nothing's getting in. And one of the clinics we seen on it was a mobile maternity clinic. And I knew right away that this is just an amazing vehicle, considering everything in the medical hospital centres are destroyed. So I got in touch then with Fra Hughes. Fra was with us to Gaza as well, and Saib Sath, and they've got a charity, Palestine Aid in Ireland. And we got together and we floated the ideas around a few people. And first up was two fantastic cousins, Sinead and Ashley Michael, and they says they wanted to run a big coffee morning. And it was an absolutely huge success in County Armagh on the Tyrone border, Blackwater town. Then another fantastic couple, Neil O'Donoghue and Kevin McElvogue, a local councillor, they put on a big coffee morning. And then another couple of great activists, Sinead and Emmett, up in Greencastle. And that got the ball rolling. We got it well on. Word spread. Other events started to happen. The music, song, poetry nights down in Dublin and County Laois, Port Arlington and Abbeyleix. And then there was a brilliant group in Belfast, Gaels Against Genocide. And they organised sponsored walks and music nights and also had the input of a lot of churches and got the money together. And we got the vehicle purchased. It's a brand new Mitsubishi bus. Went into this factory in Cairo, got fully stripped out and kitted out with the highest end of equipment going. And it's a beautiful mobile maternity clinic. And I was out last week in Cairo. We've seen it finished. And there's another 2 mobile maternity clinics going with it. They will be added to what they already have, which is 5 more mobile clinics and 14 ambulances. So by the time these other 2 are finished, we hope to have more fundraising done and get another one. And that'll be over 20 brand new vehicles, George, that'll go in on a convoy from Cairo into Gaza. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we do believe there is going to be a day after. And when that day comes, we're going to have beautiful gifts from Ireland for the people of Gaza.
Beautiful indeed. The Irish people are beyond compare in their support for the Palestinian people and the Irish diaspora also, particularly in Glasgow Celtic, but right around the world. In fact, it's now spreading to a lot of different football clubs. This zeitgeist, we are the zeitgeist, John, even though we are well past our peak, put it that way. We are the zeitgeist. Everyone in the world wants to do something for Palestine. I just donated 50 quid this afternoon to a young schoolgirl in Batley. The little girl has got a trek going, and suddenly fundraising is going wild around it. Everyone's looking for something to do. But as you rightly point out, at this moment, there are women desperately in need of that unit that you bought and got kitted out, but the vehicle cannot go in. Surely now the task is to force the Irish government to try to impose itself with this act of mercy from Ireland to get this vehicle through the gates. What have you got in mind for that?
Well, absolutely. Unfortunately, the Irish government are just interested in issuing statements and a wee bit like, oh, we, with the state of Palestine, and maybe we'll have to put some pressure on. It is, we reckon that close to 5,000 people across the island of Ireland have contributed to this. This was a very grassroots effort, George, from everybody, from the £2, £3 raffle tickets, £10 to get it, it was just amazing. And that now, as I've said to everybody that I was fundraising with, this belongs to you, you own it. So then we can put the pressure on the Irish government, and they gotta have to do something, because just saying we made a contribution to an airdrop or a lorry load of flour that's sitting in a warehouse in Alarish, it doesn't cut any mustard. But now that we have something, it's right across the front of it. It says a gift to Gaza from Ireland. It's from the Irish people, and the Irish government, they need to be doing more, and so every other government for that matter. They need to be doing a hell of a lot more than what any of them are doing at the minute.
Oh, sure, every other government. I only make the point about the Irish government is that there would seem to be a possibility of forcing them to do something, whereas the British government and most Western governments are a part of the crime. I mean, they are deep right in the heart of the crime. And in Britain's case, of course, for 100 years past and more. Finally, John, how can people support your work? Irish viewers across the English-speaking world, Millions of people watch this show every week. How can people support you?
Well, we have a crowdfunder set up there that people can donate to, and then they can also look up Palestine Aid Ireland. They can check me out on Twitter or Facebook, and I can get in touch with anybody that wants to donate. We can share the details. And as I say, George, given our history of the convoys and that with people power, it's, you give us all an opportunity, the ordinary people, to, get in the vehicles. And I always talk about it was a journey to Gaza that I'm still on. That journey has never ended, and I hope it never ends, and we still always do something. And, your fingerprints is on it, and Kevin and everybody else that was there, we had, I know there was ups and downs, but I always remember some of the good times. And one image that always will go through my head is the night you done a jig around the floor in Alarish when a mouse ran up your leg and you're trying to shake it out. We called it mubarak. And so we have great memories and motivation. And when I was in Cairo last week, and just all I can think of is, it was great to see it finished, but the joy will be getting it in. And, there's 50,000 pregnant women at any one time in Gaza, and they need it. And the sooner they can get it, the better.
Amen to that. And that mouse, of course, happened just after we'd been brutally attacked by the goons of then President Mubarak, now departed. But the Egyptian government that is now in power in Cairo isn't very much better so far as the Palestinians are concerned. Indeed, maybe even worse. What kind of cooperation did you get in Egypt? Or did you just give them a wide berth?
Oh, wide berth. We dealt with there's a company called, or a NGO charity called Medics Worldwide that are dealing. They're an NGO. They're already in Al Shifa Hospital with doctors working there. And then there was this company that done the whole conversion. We didn't have any government to deal with, and likewise with all the vehicles, because they've all been purchased in Cairo and will go in there. So we don't have any government dealings with. But it's amazing, George. You might as well be in New Zealand as be in Cairo. We're 5 hours down the road from Gaza. You don't see Palestinian flags. There's no protests allowed at all. As I say, you could have been a million miles away, and yet it's only a few hours up the road. And I don't know, it's like the people. Now, you do talk to the people in Egypt, and they are deadly sincere, and they would love to, see things happening, but they just, they can't do it. It's just not politically possible.
Powerless, yeah. They're powerless. John Hurson, I take my hat off to you. Irish activist, former Viva Palestina convoy veteran, and now operating at a consistent level for many years in defense of and in relief of Gaza. Thanks very much for joining us on the Mother of All Talk Shows. So the poll is, will Trump pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? Yes or no? You can vote on Telegram, on X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. 20,746 of you have voted, and, well, it's looking good for Ghislaine. Put it that way. Let me take a quick break, then it's your calls up to the hour. Stay tuned. Even though it has moved its mass murder campaign from Gaza, although there's still mass murdering in Gaza, of course, no day off for the poor refugees in the concentration camp of Gaza, but they have moved their killing fields to Lebanon. Lebanon, a sovereign country. Lebanon, a member of the United Nations. Lebanon, a country to which every other country in the world has diplomatic relations, has ambassadors in place, is being remorselessly bombed with hundreds and hundreds of air attacks, killing hundreds and hundreds of people every day, most of them women and children. Was it ever thus? As I said the other night, put the letter H in front of any Arab child and you can slaughter them with impunity. Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, they all look the same. They all are deserving of death, violent, sudden death. delivered from American airplanes, using American missiles and bombs, with British airplanes supplying the targeting information and the offending American and British reconnaissance flights flying out of somebody else's country, namely Cyprus, and the British sovereign base there.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
The little girl in Batley to whom I referred is Humera Ebrar, by the way. So if her fundraising for her hike for Gaza comes your way in Batley or surrounds, please give it your support. Let's go down under, where it is very early in the morning indeed. But Sylvie in Melbourne has a call to action. Go ahead, Sylvie.
Oh, hello, George. Thank you for taking my call. Yes, it's cold and it's dark. Look, it's just an appeal for the hundreds of thousands of armchair politicians out there talking. An opinion isn't enough. You have to actually take action. You have to be on the streets. Marching is not enough. None of these things are working. Our governments are not listening to us. This is not about Palestine alone. Our human rights are slipping away, and we're sitting back waiting to be saved by the George Galloways of this world. And it isn't going to happen unless we ourselves do something. Talking is not enough. Those who are risking their lives, their reputations, to try to help us, but if we just sit back and talk about it, it isn't going to happen. You have to get out there and start doing something. If you don't, your governments will have their foot on your neck and the neck of those you love when it's too late to make a difference. I'm 80, not going to matter to me. I'll be dead soon, okay? But to all those people, the young, to all those people out there, they're going to have to do something. Their government won't do it. We have to force them. So you have a future to face, so get out there and organise. Do me a favour, save yourselves. Don't wait for somebody else to do it for you. I'm afraid that's all I have to say.
What a great show this is! I listened to it, I thought, wow, what a great show. I've called into your show today, George, because I'm a great caller. Probably the greatest caller you've ever had. I really am. The only way your show could be better is if it had more of me, Donald J. Trump, in it. You keep talking about me, George. You do. I've heard it. I have. So many of the American people, the best people, listen to your show. And I've heard them crying about me. I have. And I listen and I go, ooh, America, don't cry. Don't cry. You need to be careful what you say about me, George. You don't want me to put a tariff on your show like I did with China. And then you'll come running for my help, just like little Zelensky. You know, I know you will. I know these things. Make the mother of all talk shows great again. That's why we're here. That's what we're gonna do, George. We're gonna boost your ratings. Donald is gonna boost them bigly. I'm giving your show the Trump bump. You're welcome, George. Thank me. And remember, nobody talks like me, nobody calls like me, and absolutely nobody ends a phone call like me. I'm hanging up now, not because I finished, but because I won.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
You know, and it's a very, thank you for, you know, I'm a big fan of your show, Gigi. Great debate, great. And I'm Scottish. I'm very passionate about what's happening there, you know. I had a great mom. She was Scottish, Mary McLeod. She taught me well. She taught me well at everything, including golf. I love Scotland, and I love the Scottish food. It's great food. I said to Melania, you know, haggis. Look at that. What's more Scottish than that? Me. I am that haggis. She said, what, thin-skinned and full of crap?
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
I wonder if he had any haggis whilst he was here in the old country. It turns out it was not Sylvie in Melbourne who got cut off, but it was me, and I apologise for the delay in getting back to you and in addressing the points that she made. Of course, not everyone can be as active as Sylvie, aged 80, in the cold and dark of an Australian winter, early morning. Would like everyone to be. As I said earlier, I mean, I multiple times drove all the way from London to Gaza, and indeed to Baghdad for that matter, with my fellows, Yvonne Ridley, John Hurson, and many others behind me, and they were very effective. See, the point about a convoy is that it is a moving demonstration. It is filmic, it is photogenic, it is something that has a narrative day by day by day as you close in on your objective. It's a very effective tactic, and I'm proud of the fact that I was one of the pioneers of it. Greta Berlin and Yvonne Ridley again did the same with the ships. The freedom flotillas that even now are still going more than a decade and a half later. Not everyone can do that, but everyone can do something. Everyone can ensure, for example, that they are participating actively in the boycott, by which I mean you don't just boycott the goods, services, companies that are on the boycott list, but you endlessly proselytize amongst your friends and your relations, your workmates, that they should not do that either. They should not drink that, eat that. That's something that is easy to do. And if you're not doing it, then shame on you. If you're sitting in a Starbucks, don't talk to me. I don't want to know you. Because to ask you to drink somebody else's coffee rather than Starbucks coffee is the smallest sacrifice I could possibly ask you for. So boycott and get others to boycott. Fundraise, support other people's fundraising. March, protest, vote, do everything, anything that you can to be part of this multi-layered mass movement of people. The greatest mass movement of people there has ever been for anything is the mass movement for Palestine, the mass movement for Gaza. We're working hard, Gayatri and me, putting together the bones of the film that we're going to make, The Killing of Gaza, and we'll shortly be crowdfunding for that film. And of course, if we reach our targets, the film will be made and it will be free to air. We hope that millions upon millions of people will watch it. But it can only be made if you support the crowdfunding. If you give £10,000, you'll be an executive producer. If you give lesser amounts, then you'll be, of course, credited on screen. Everybody who makes a contribution will be credited on screen. And I want thousands and thousands of names on the roller coming up at the end of that film. Stay tuned. I'll give you more details as soon as I can, or hopefully you'll see them before I can bring them to you. Now, if you want to leave a comment on YouTube, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now. And I'll try and read out your statements. Like this one, Sticky Bits, says Israel was born out of terrorism and nothing has changed, apart from escalating to genocide, of course. Yeah, we should have, when people show you who they are, you really should believe them. When the Zionist murder gangs hanged British sergeants by piano wire in the orange groves of Jaffa and booby-trapped their bodies so that the rescuers would get blown up too, we kind of should have taken the hint. When they sent letter bombs to Winston Churchill while he was fighting Adolf Hitler, when the Zionist terror gang female walked into the British Foreign Office to try and blow it up, we should have believed them. We should have said, you're terrorists. If you get your hands on power, who knows what you will do? Well, now, of course, we do. Prosthetic Anger, 1997, Prosthetic Anger 1997, says that picture of the old lady being arrested for speaking up against the great Gazan genocide says it all. Indeed it does. Karaoke Stars 5064 says Starmer is as weak as Macron, just another puppet. Actually, he's even weaker than Macron, if you want my honest opinion. Phil Johnson Base says Starmer is trying to save face as 1 million people face starvation, and like Macron, he doesn't want to be seen complicit in their genocide. We see them all right. Bernie Dietrichs 5681 says Zionists won't even allow Doctors Without Borders to bring in baby formula to Gaza. The IDF confiscates all aid. Let's go to New York. We've been to Melbourne. Let's go to New York, where Matthew wants to talk about Gaza and the church. Go ahead, Matthew.
Hey, Honorable Mr. Galloway, how are you? Audience?
By the grace of God, good sir, thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, there something happened a few months ago. It's really been bothering me. I wanted to speak about it. Just to be clear to all the Catholics listening, I'm not trying to single you out specifically. It's just how this particular story went. So across from my work in Manhattan is a church, St. Francis of Assisi, a Roman Catholic church. And since 1930, we have a bread line, 365 days a year. And I'm blessed to have, been a part of that operation over the years. But this past Ash Wednesday, I noticed a commotion in the front, and there's Cardinal Timothy Michael Dolan. Cardinal Dolan's the cardinal in charge of, 2.5 million Catholic New Yorkers. And I decided to, say hello to him, and he had all the cameras there and security and the press. It's a photo op every Ash Wednesday. And after a couple of niceties, I straight out went to him, what are you doing about Palestine? And I think he was taken back. He wasn't expecting the question. And he goes, oh, well, I raised $50,000 to rebuild Gaza. And I was dumbfounded. I kept quiet because the number was resonating in my head, the amount of Catholics, that amount of money, but it's not really about the dollar amount. And like I said, it was bothering me. It was just during Ramadan also. And a few days later, during our night prayers, we had a visiting imam come, and phenomenal, talking about Yemen, all right, and the orphans and everything going on since 2014 there. And we had about 125 folks in the room during the prayers that night. Within a half an hour, we raised over $60,000, just like that. Boom. Because he was so clear and he put it out there exactly what the Yemenis were going through. And it's not about the money per se. I mean, every bit of money is a blessing, period. What I'm concerned about is, are these priests and bishops and cardinals, are they getting up on their pulpits and saying anything? Are they putting a point across of what's going on?
They're really not, Matthew. I think you've made your point, and a very powerful one it is too. There are two explanations for that, and don't forget that Cardinal Dolan was briefly, papabile, he was in the running to be the Pope, but another American got the gig instead, is a deeply reactionary and conservative figure. So he would not be in the front ranks of those Catholic prelates who were ready to make a stand on Gaza. Secondly, Muslims are the most generous people on earth. I've been in fundraising events, particularly in Chicago, where a giant sheet is laid out on the floor and people throw paper money into it for Gaza. And hundreds of thousands of dollars in one mosque, in one city of Chicago, are raised. I've seen it with my own eyes. There's no fundraising like Muslim fundraising. There's no doubt about that. I've been to 500, maybe 5,000 Muslim fundraising events, and there is no generosity like you will see, particularly during Ramadan, but not only then. That level of fundraising is not common in other communities, in other churches. But you're absolutely correct to ask the question, are these people, priests right up to cardinals, doing their duty? And the answer is they are not. Some of them are doing more than others. None of them are doing enough. Even His Holiness the Pope himself is not doing enough. He should be there now at the gates of Gaza. That maternity unit that the Irish people have donated, that should be his Pope-mobile. We believe in life. Choose life. The right of the unborn child to be saved. This is what the Catholic Church is all about. The Pope should take that Irish natal unit from Cairo and drive up to the gates, and then let's see Netanyahu refuse to open them. If he did refuse to open them, the consequences could become very severe indeed. Thank you, Matthew. A very powerful argument that you made. Now, a big thanks to this week's top donors who visited the MOATS.tv website. Mortaz Salah, Mazafar Ali, James Brogan, Mel Lee, and a big thanks to Samir, who made a huge donation this morning. Please do become a MOATS donor tonight. Give what you can to support the show. Those kind and generous people were able to be big donors, but you may be a small donor. Give £1, $1, €1. It's easy. You've just got to press a button. Just got to click on a button on the MOATS.tv website. We depend on you. Here's an old friend of the show now. We've been in New York. We've been in Melbourne. Why wouldn't we go to Reading, where Terence wants to talk about priests and politics? An endlessly fascinating subject, Terence. What's your take on it?
Indeed, Mr. Galloway. Good evening to you and yours. Well, priests and politics. The first one is a priest. The wife and I went back to Portugal in a place weeks ago, and I went to Mass, obviously, to Lisbon, and the priest never mentioned one word on Gaza. Not one word. Came back last week. My sister picked us up in Bristol Airport. We went back to South Wales, and my retiring priest in St. Joseph's, God bless him, he said prayers are needed for the starving in Gaza. And I've never done it before. I started hitting my pew in the front of it, and I almost spoke during Mass, and I couldn't. I was so buzzed up about that. And the Muslim guy, lives his faith by the sound of him. But it is about doing things and telling people things. Moving to the press, I mean, you'll be pleased to know that the great Jeremy Bowen, the sage of journalism who dug a trench in the Ukraine when somebody was watching him, he didn't know, and pretended it was a bomb trench. He turned on his side and thought, oops, yeah, being caught. He's now taking pictures from an aeroplane over Israel saying we can't go in because they won't let us. But in the name of journalism, we'll soon be there. Your opinion on that. But lastly, it's like you, Mr. Galloway, Mehdi Hassan is doing a film on the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh, the American journalist, the American journalist who was killed, and the Americans didn't care about it. So, your opinion on all three, Mr. Galloway, if you don't mind.
Well, first of all, I've been at Mass in 3 countries in the last 4 weeks, and none of the priests, none of them, breathed one word about Gaza, even though the Pope has been as engaged as he has been, even though fellow Catholics have been murdered in the Holy Family Church in Gaza, even though in the West Bank Christian town of Taibe, the houses and property of the faithful people of Jesus are on fire almost every night, even though the Christians in Palestine are being murdered in plain sight. Not a single one of the priests that I have heard have raised even the name Gaza. Never mind a full-throated paean of support to the fortitude of the Palestinian people. Not even the word Gaza has been in these sermons. 3 of them in 4 weeks. So I'm with you on that, and God bless your retiring priest in South Wales. Mehdi HASN is not a friend of mine. I'm not a fan of his, but he has hit a bit of form over Gaza in the immediate past, not in the whole 22 months, and certainly not in the whole 77 years, that part of it which he's been in a position to influence, but he's doing a good job now. And I belong in that school of thought that, as the Bible itself says, there is more rejoicing in heaven, the repentance in action of one sinner than the 99 who hath no need of repentance. So I welcome the fact that Mehdi HASN is making that film, and I hope that he gets all the support that he needs in order to complete it, as indeed I wish for our own film. I know Jeremy Bone very, very well. I have known Jeremy Bone for almost 40 years. Jeremy Bone knows everything about the crisis in the Middle East. He knows everything about the Palestinian agony, Calvary, crucifixion. He knows it. I know he knows it. I have interminably sat down with him and can testify that he knows it, but he pretends not to know it. The same man that published a how-to make Molotov cocktails and successfully insert them into Russian military vehicles goes along with the false narrative that in this case it's the Israelis who are the victims of terror and the Palestinians who are the victims are instead transformed magically, a kind of transubstantiation into the terrorists. Terence, thanks for that. Now, on the podcast, we're in the top 20 for politics in India this week. That has to be counted as a very major achievement. If you think of the size of India, if you think of the prevalence of the English language in India, if you think of the number of people who are interested in politics in India, for the mother of all talk shows to have entered the top 20 for politics in India is well worth celebrating. We're also in the top 20 in Finland, Singapore, and Hong Kong this week. And we've been on the edge of the top 50 for politics in the UK. You can download the MOATS podcast by scanning the QR code on your screen now. Let me take a quick break, because after it, it's the indefatigable one and only Richard Medhurst. Stay tuned. He's a schoolyard bully, Piers Morgan. And he does have a big show, but then he has a big and plush and very well appointed studio. And he has a big and very well paid staff. He has a very big budget. He's an extremely wealthy man. And the combination of all of that does give you a certain head start. We, on the other hand, are a mom and pop business. There's just me and Gayatri. And the people who told me the phones are melting are my own grandchildren who are answering the phones for nothing. This is an unpaid gig I'm doing and do twice a week. Nobody pays me one brass farthing to make this show, to present this show. I'm not sure that Piers Morgan would tell you how much he makes.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Now, one man who would have had a keen eye on the deliberations of the High Court in London today is my next guest, Richard Medhurst. Although a peaceful, Christian, British journalist, he's currently held in not one country, but two countries, Britain and Austria, waiting for a decision on whether or not he's to be charged with terrorism for his words, written and spoken. And anyone who's a regular viewer of the mother of all talk shows knows that nobody writes and speaks as powerfully as Richard Medhurst, who joins us now. Richard, a good deal of celebration today in London. It's going to be a long haul. It doesn't get the people who are currently being held on fake terrorism charges for holding up a piece of cardboard with words on it. Doesn't get them out of jail, doesn't get them freed, but a judicial review is a significant breakthrough. I'll put that to you. What do you think?
Hi, George. It's good to be back on the program. Thanks for having me. Yes, so originally, I was following this whole prescription case from the beginning as it was taking place. I attended the court remotely, and I'll just say one thing before I get into today's outcome is that they had the Lord, or I should say Lady Chief Justice, and two other judges who just so happened to be ready to take the appeal immediately after. So this is already late in the evening that day, which looked to me and looked to Craig, who was in the court and feeding me all this information as well from the sessions I couldn't attend, as a stitch-up, if we can put it that way, or be that blunt. But yes, today is very important news, because a lot of people in the last couple of weeks we've been seeing all up and down the country, even in places like Truro, in Cornwall, coming out and holding up these placards. And in some cases, people who just happen to have perhaps a kufiya on, being arrested under the very same provision that I was arrested under, this Section 12 of 12(1)(a), where it's basically giving an opinion that can be considered supportive of a prescribed organization. And again, I should point out, this is the first direct action, the first protest group to be ever placed on this list, and it is very significant. And so you've had groups like Defend Our Jurors that have been also campaigning to have people come out every weekend and hold up placards and basically engage in what is just civil disobedience and a peaceful protest to have this prescription lifted. Now, what the decision today means is that there's going to be, so Palestine Action, specifically Huda Amori, they've won permission to go ahead with this judicial review, and that means that they're going to go challenge the government decision at the High Court. And I don't have the dates yet, but I can tell you that it's going to be in November. It's going to happen across the span of a few days, and I'll hopefully be covering it in the court. And this is obviously a massive blow to not just Yvette Cooper, but also to Keir Starmer, on whose behest she is acting. And this is something that might take a couple of years. And just to be very clear, that until that group is until the judicial review goes through, and if it's successful for Palestine Action, it will still be considered an offence to display any form of support. But again, we're reaching levels that are so ridiculous now that people who just happen to have the word Palestine maybe or wearing a kufi have been arrested and accused. This is both in England and Scotland of supporting a terrorist organization, and they're basically going wild with this and arresting people just for the slightest transgression. And this strikes at the core of free speech and the right to protest. We have to be very clear about that. And this is the danger that I was pointing to when I got arrested, that if you don't have the right to speak freely, you can't have a free press, and if you don't have the right to protest, well, you can't have a free society. So, all of these cases are somehow related in the sense not just that they talk about Palestine, but that they're really going after our fundamental rights in the UK.
For sure, and I've no doubt that we'll have to talk again about that. Even Donald Trump was able to shame the British Prime Minister yesterday on the issue of freedom of speech. Starmer had no reply that he could credibly give to the charge that Britain, a country that I was born into a long time before you, and our whole shtick was that we were a free society. It was the communists over there that did censorship and tyranny. We were the free world, and one of our characteristics was we had the right to protest, strike, speak, write, do whatever we wanted to do to make our true and genuine beliefs known. And you've only got to adumbrate that which we had and compare it with what the situation is now to realize how far we've fallen. But let's move on because there's so much to discuss. Is there going to be a ceasefire in Gaza or not? Is there going to be British and French recognition of a Palestinian state or not? And what would that in any case mean if it were to happen? Your views, please.
Well, George, I have to be honest, I don't take, I don't put much stock into the words of Keir Starmer on any subject. And this idea that he's going to use Palestinian self-determination, which again is an inalienable right, as some sort of bargaining chip, is frankly insulting. And what is the message here? I mean, he's basically trying to use that to threaten the Israelis. Well, let's say, for example, that they actually comply with what he's asking them to do, which is ridiculous because he's on the same side. But let's imagine for a second that they do stop the violence, whatever that means. What does that mean? He's going to continue denying Palestinians recognition for their state, and I mean, again, I shouldn't have to point out the fact that the UK is very, very much responsible for this whole situation in the first place, with Balfour and Sykes-Picot and all the subsequent aid and diplomatic cover and weapons that we've been giving the Israelis for decades and decades and decades. So it's extraordinarily insulting, and he's acting like he's doing Palestinians a favor when during his entire tenure, he's been providing them with intelligence, with these Royal Air Force flights from taking off from Cyprus. And of course, it's not that he started it, but he continued where Sunak left off. He continued to provide them with weapons, with parts for their F-35 jets. And then he used terrorism laws against me and against other journalists and against activists and prescribed a direct action group that was dismantling the Israeli supply chain. And now he acts like he's doing Palestine a favor. You'll remember, George, there was this interview, I think it was on LBC, that Keir Starmer did, where he went on the air and he explicitly said that Israel has the right to cut off water and electricity. I mean, you don't have to be a human rights lawyer to know that that's a war crime, but he is a human rights lawyer, so he certainly knows better. And I don't think he's ever retracted those comments or apologized for them in any capacity. No. So he's done everything in his power to again, not just rhetorically, but also in terms of material conditions, kill Palestinians, to make them suffer. So honestly, even if tomorrow morning he recognized the Palestinian state, I'm not really quite sure that would absolve him of what he's done. And I don't think there's going to be a ceasefire. I think that all of these, it's not just Keir Starmer, but all of these leaders that are coming out now and pretending like this, they're suddenly shocked about Gaza. I think they're just running cover for the Israelis. It's kind of like putting a band-aid or a plaster on a gunshot wound and acting like, oh yeah, we see the violence, don't worry, we're going to do something about it. But they're really just buying time for the Israelis to keep killing. And some people have suggested that, as a matter of fact, they might be done killing. That this is basically just, they're wrapping up the end. I mean, frankly, I don't know what the death toll is right now. The Lancet say it's 400,000. Others say it's, the Hamas-run health ministry, as the BBC say, will tell you it's 60,000. Does it really matter at the end of the day? A genocide is based on intent. And the land grabs are happening. The Israelis hold conferences and meetings about openly in public about stealing land in Gaza. So there's a multitude of crimes going on here that no ceasefire is going to solve.
Well, of course, it may be that they're done killing. Although listening to Ben Gvir, who may very well end up, I mean, some people say he'll never be prime minister, but that's what they once said about Menachem Begin, the leader of the terror gang with the blood of British officials on his hand. They said it about Yitzhak Shamir, who personally murdered the United Nations envoy, the Swedish count. Shamir personally murdered him with his hand, and he became the prime minister. So Ben Gvir could well become the prime minister. And from his point of view, there'll never be a done killing. There'll never be an end to this until every last Palestinian is extirpated from the land. But let me press you on the issue of recognition. What do they mean by that, Richard? I mean, Britain has supported the Oslo Agreement for 35 years. The United States provided the lawn on which the Oslo Agreement was signed. Every government in the West is already committed to a two-state solution, to the Oslo process, but it's endless process and no outcome, and deliberately so. So what is it that they would in fact be recognizing if they go ahead with that recognition?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point, George. It kind of goes without saying, and it's perplexing. I know it's very perplexing because they're supposed to have been there from the beginning in favor of a two-state solution. And I'll go back even further to the UNGA Resolution 181. So that's what the Israelis cite as the basis of the creation of Israel. Well, what they don't tell you is that UNGA 181 stipulates three conditions. It doesn't just say there can be an Israel. It says that there's an Israeli state for Jews, and there's a Palestinian state for Arabs. And there's also Jerusalem as a corpus separatum, which is a separate body in Latin, basically meaning that it will be sort of a capital because of its importance for all three religions, basically, but also that it wouldn't belong to one party or the other. The point is that the Israelis have never respected those other two conditions. They illegally annexed Jerusalem, and they've never allowed a Palestinian state to materialize. And even when they did have the Oslo Accords, I mean, they went on to kill Arafat. They went on to keep building illegal settlements in the West Bank, even putting illegal football clubs there. Everything, frankly, that belongs to the Israeli state, even from a football club to a settlement, is illegal in the West Bank, and they just keep on building them and expanding them and increasing them, their presence in numbers. You've had hundreds of thousands of Israeli settlers move into the West Bank since the Oslo Accords. They've never been sanctioned, they've never been punished, they've never been stopped or impeded in any capacity by the UK or the US. So the whole thing is a farce, and really this kind of speaks to the whole premise of Western diplomacy in the last 30 years in general. I mean, I can point to the Minsk agreements, I can point to the 2+4 talks, the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, what is there that we haven't lied about in negotiations to to the other side, whether it's the Palestinians, the Russians, or the Iranians. We don't have any more real diplomats, unfortunately. We just have worse liars and criminals in suits. That's it. There's no more diplomacy. So what they've been recognizing as a Palestinian state, would that even include Gaza? Because they've been demanding that Hamas depart from, not just disarm, but depart entirely. They don't, Keir Starmer and his French counterpart, Macron, they don't elaborate on that whatsoever. It's just some vague token that they throw out there to make it look like they're unbiased or that they're trying to resolve this. But they have no interest whatsoever in a peace process or in a Palestinian state. And they're not trying to pressure the Israelis one bit. I don't think anyone, there should be no illusions or misunderstandings about that. The Israelis don't actually feel that this is some kind of a pressure tactic. They know it's all an act. This is all calculated and coordinated and agreed upon beforehand. And again, Keir Starmer should be viewed as a full partner in crime with the Zionists. He is not an external party. He's not complicit. He is a belligerent. He has made the UK armed forces, unfortunately, a belligerent party in this genocide against the Palestinians. So again, there is just these abstract, tokens and terms that they throw out there, but they have no meaning in reality.
Finally, if you're able to, tell us what stage your own private persecution has reached. When can Richard Medhurst speak and write freely and travel freely again?
Well, George, I'm still out on bail, unconditional bail. So it's almost been a year now. So August 15th will be the 1-year anniversary of my arrest, which is wild to say that. They haven't charged me yet. The police have sent my file to the Crown Prosecution Service in May, so two months ago they sent it. And then my bail was moved to November 5th, Guy Fawkes Day, of all days. And so I'm waiting to see if Keir Starmer's Attorney General, Richardhermer, who has family in the IDF, or dear family members serving in the IDF, as he puts it, is going to charge me. And again, that could happen tomorrow morning. It could happen on November 4th. I don't know. But my police bail date is November 5th, so I have to be back at Heathrow Police Station on November 5th. And that's unless they charge me earlier or they decide to extend it again for the 4th, 5th time. I've frankly lost count. But I have been able to travel freely, thankfully, and I just came back from Iran. I was there to report on the war. And the destruction I saw was frankly staggering. So I'm going to be publishing a documentary film on that quite soon. I filmed a lot of good footage there, and I was privileged to be welcomed there as a foreign British journalist during wartime, and also to do all these interviews and go around reporting. So I'm trying my best to work as normal despite the circumstances.
Well, I hope it's a spectacular fireworks night on the 5th of November. Richard Medhurst, thank you for joining us once again on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Let me take a quick break, then it's your calls right up to Gayatri with the social media news roundup. Stay tuned.
The airwaves. This savannah is a rigid dichotomy of fact and fiction. As Fisher says, the Twitter sphere where the slightest misjudgment can spell being cancelled. One species rules over the airwaves through its ability to adapt and survive in even the harshest environments. The George Galloway. The top cat in these parts, it is mostly active on Sunday evenings in Britain and mid-afternoon in the United States. It seldom roars during the day. Most notable for its wide variety of headdress, it protects these parts from the mainstream media. You can catch this fine specimen on the mother of all talk shows. Don't pick a fight with it. They've been known to bite back.
are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Well, will Trump pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? Yes or no? You've got 20 minutes to have your say on that. We've been in New York. Let's go to Florida. Who wouldn't? Where Jay wants to talk about Epstein, the scene of some of the crimes. Go ahead, Jay.
Hey, good afternoon, good evening. How are you today? You look, your wife turned you out pretty nicely. I like that jacket you got tonight.
Thank you so much. She does indeed.
Wondering if you were going pheasant hunting a little later. Anyway, so I guess I'll go ahead and get on with it. I saw that you had the Epstein in your title, thumbnail today, and I haven't heard a whole lot of it. So what I did, I wanted to call and throw a little fuel on the fire, let's say. And what I had was a thing that you might remember called the Franklin Conspiracy, involving a man by the name of Lawrence King Jr., and this is the Franklin Credit Union scandal that went on through the 70s, 80s, and finally ended up resolving itself after 15 years in court sometime around 1998. It can be found online.
No, I don't know, but I'm all ears. I'm all ears, Jay. Go ahead.
Well, you know, we're getting used to talking about this whole thing with the ped whatever elite in high circles and what have you, but it turns out that they're everywhere. So this is sort of directed at a place called Franklin, Nebraska, and it starts in the 70s and 80s. And it's a man that ran a credit union there and started a child care sort of movement, which turned out to be anything but that. The testimony that comes out from the victim of this goes extremely deep. It implies ex-presidents, former directors of the CIA, one of whose grandsons is now in office again, security agencies, who mysteriously disappeared in 1998 or 9. And it talks about how these children were trafficked all the way up through the Midwest, were used in pretty much on call in rituals and things of that nature. I don't want to get too lurid on your program here. Of that nature. Sure. And so it's really just, you know, I've heard you say there isn't just one Epstein, and they're not just located in New York City. They're everywhere. And I would suggest that,
there's not just, you're right. And I'm glad you pointed it out. There's not only one Epstein. There's an Epstein everywhere. And as you've just pointed out, there are Epsteins in every era. I myself was a victim of one of them in the early 1960s. So this is not a new thing. What is a new thing is, first of all, that the foulness of these debased, degenerate desires is weaponized by a state for the purposes of blackmail. These people that were being trafficked by Epstein and Maxwell were not paying for what they did, at least not in cash. They were paying in another way. They were paying by giving their fealty to, by giving their allegiance to, and by, frankly, obeying the orders of those who had weaponized their degeneracy. The degeneracy would have been there anyway. The degeneracy has always been there in all eras. But the weaponization of it by Israel, by the Israeli secret services, and the collusion of the United States itself in the crimes and now in the cover-up of the crimes, that's new. Once upon a time, no political leader could survive the idea that they were blocking the revealing of the Epstein files they'd earlier told us 1,000,000 times were so explosive they were going to shock and destroy the prevailing political orthodoxies, now actually, on reflection, don't exist. But if they do exist, the Democrats have put my name in it. That is all new. Jay, many thanks. Now, a big shout out to the people who've donated big tonight. I really appreciate this. MOATS.tv, since we came on air. Alison Hines, Alison Legioma Evans, Emmanuel Ben Israel, who is a regular generous donor. Thank you for that, Emmanuel. Lynn White and Mohammed Gulfraz. Big thanks to each and every one of you for your generosity. But for the rest of you, don't leave me tonight without leaving me $1, €1, or £1. Unless you don't think I'm worth it. Korush is in Glasgow on the UK freedom of speech. Korush, a very interesting visitor we had in Scotland in the last few days. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. George. It's again lovely to speak to you. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
And all the people who support with their hearts, we really appreciate. Yeah, by the visit, they've been here, Mr. Mr. Andrew from the royal family, I guess, is part of this Epstein thing. That's why probably the supporting Keir Starmer, whatever his name is, 15 years I'm here, I don't even know his name. They are only the toys. They are toys of royal family. You know, if royal family doesn't want anything happen, it wouldn't happen. If it's such a thing, if he is banning us for speaking now about this, how many things he's going to ban in the future? How far he's going to go? Are they going to beat us on the street? Are they going to get us, catch us, and do whatever they want? Just because we are telling the truth? Just because we are saying, please don't kill children? All the word on the street, 15 years I am living in here. On the street, 99,99999, all the people are supporting Palestine and they're against Israel for genociding all the children. All the... we get excited if we speak like this. It's not like...
No, it's hard not to get emotional, Korush, and I'm glad that you are still capable of it. I wonder at the humanity of those who are not capable of it, who plainly are unmoved by it, and maybe just turn the page about it. And I don't just refer to the powerful, although it applies to all of the powerful. Everyone with power in Britain is capable of and is daily demonstrating that they are capable of simply walking past on the other side of the road. I was a frequent visitor to Nablus on the West Bank. I twinned my city of Dundee with Nablus 45 years ago, and it's still extant. The Palestinian flag is still on the town hall of my home city of Dundee. It's one of my proudest achievements. But right next to Nablus, overlooking Nablus, is the mountain on which the Samaritans live. And the Good Samaritan, of course, famously, would not pass by on the other side of the road. He stopped and tended to the wounded man. And he's the most famous Samaritan in the world. And nobody in Christendom is unaware of the importance of that parable. It is a sin to walk by on the other side of the world. Not everybody knows what a sin is, but a sin, if not expiated, a sin, if not repented for, could actually end you in the bowels of hell for eternity at the end of your life. Now, you may scoff at that. You may laugh at that. But if I turn out to be right, you won't be laughing then. Korush, thanks for that great call. Great Pentine 739 says Palestinians tried to be peaceful. They had many peaceful movements, like the March of Return. Instead of gas, the IDF used sniper bullets to murder over 200 women and kids, and maim and paralyze many, many others too, one of whom I know very well. Anastar 37 says the only black American U.S. activist kidnapped by Israel aboard the flotilla Handala, Chrissmalls, was choked, kicked while detained by Israeli forces. I did read that, Anastar, well, it proves a point I've often made, that there are not many people as racist in the world as Israelis. And Arcane Eclectic, love that name, Sisi's Egypt is a CIA puppet state. Well, my exchange with Hadi on Wednesday on that is up on the internet now, on YouTube and elsewhere. Turned out to be quite a celebrated exchange of views, and has earned me quite a bit of hate mail from the supporters of Sisi. Crowhawk says British Jews who joined the IOF and possibly committed war crimes are able to return to the UK unmolested, whilst campaigners against war crimes are arrested and persecuted. Perfectly put, Crowhawk, in one paragraph, 2 sentences. Sammy Git, I think, 9486, Mehdi may be good on the issue of Palestine, but he also peddles a lot of empire lies. Mehdi is no Medhurst. Indeed, he is not. Anya is in Dubai on Zionism. Go ahead, Anya.
Hello, hi, dear George. How are you?
By the grace of God, good.
Yeah, and I'm here actually. But anyways, I wanted to say that people they think that during the Holocaust, it was the people, basically that people who live in Israel now, who call themselves Jews, but they're Zionists, they have nothing to do with Jews, that they were the ones who were suffering, and now they're putting the suffering, the same thing that they were suffering, onto the Palestinians. But my belief is that the same people who created the Holocaust are the same Zionists of now. Basically, Zionists back then supported the Holocaust happening in World War II against the Jews, because Zionists are not Jews, and they needed an excuse for them to be able to create their own state, and that's by sacrificing the Jews who were against Zionism. And now they're making the same Holocaust again, but on the Palestinians. But people think that, because Jews were in such a great disaster from the Nazi regime, that now they're doing the same thing onto the Palestinians. But it wasn't the Jews, it wasn't the Zionists who were suffering. It was the Jews who were suffering. And the Jews and Zionists are very different. They're not the same religion. Well, I just wanted to know if you think.
Of course. You made that powerfully, Anya. And I have to supplement it with some truths of my own. It's absolutely the case that the founders of Zionism in the 19th century were atheistic. They did not believe in God, yet now we're told that God promised them the land of the Palestinian people. But the Zionist colonial project had nothing whatsoever to do with religion, and all of its leaders were atheists. Secondly, the Zionist movement lobbied hard, campaigned frantically, to be allowed to form a settler state anywhere in the world, in Argentina, in Africa, in multiple countries in Africa. There would have been an Israel there. as there now appears to be in Israel emerging in Cyprus. It did not occur to the founders of the Zionist movement to claim God's grace or blessing for their project, for they did not believe in God. So the truism that I frequently point out, I did this very day, that many Jews are not Zionists. In fact, the more religious the Jew, the less likely they are to be a Zionist. And the people of the Torah, the people of Notero Carta and so on, Notori Carta, are explicitly anti-Zionist. These are the rabbis that you will see on Palestinian demonstrations, who've come on convoys with me to break the siege and so on. These are religious opponents of Zionism. But there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of secular non-Zionists or anti-Zionists. Some of the most prominent people in this country and in the movement for Gaza, for Palestine, are Jews who do not accept Zionism and don't accept for 1 second that Zionism speaks for them. Michael Rosen, the children's poet laureate, Andrew Feinstein, the man who ran Keir Starmer close at the general election, and many, many others. Some of the best known names that you would know are Jewish anti-Zionists. So the danger of conflating these two things is very real and considerable. But as you pointed out, it is in the Zionist interest to pretend that they represent all Jews and that the Jewish people who disagree with them are self-hating Jews or people who have left or departed from the tribe. The triumph of Zionism is a very modern thing. I mean, prior to the Holocaust, the vast majority of the Jews had no wish or intention whatsoever to go and steal somebody else's house in Palestine. They were German Jews, Russian Jews, Hungarian Jews, Romanian Jews, French Jews, British Jews, Chinese Jews, African Jews. They had no wish to go anywhere. And when the Holocaust began, and they began to sense the horror of what was coming and began to move, the doors of Europe were slammed in their face. Slammed in their face. In the conferences of Evian and many, many others, the Western governments, American government, British government, slammed the door in the face of the Jewish refugees who were seeking to flee the dark shadow of fascism which became Holocaust. The Western countries that did that definitely owe a great debt to the Jewish people for the great crime by omission that they carried out. The Hitlerites did the murdering. The fascists of all hues right across occupied Europe, they did the murdering. But the Western countries that slammed the door shut on the fleeing Jews were co-responsible for what happened in the Holocaust. The only people who took in Jewish refugees were the Palestinian people. And look what happened to them. Rolf is in Bermuda. Wow, who wouldn't go there? Rolf in Bermuda on war crimes. You're up next. What would you like to say?
Hi, good evening, George. I just want to say this. Let us not forget that from the very beginning, after October 7th, Israel committed itself to commit genocide. They also, as a method of that genocide, they were committed to starving the people of Palestine in Gaza. That's without a doubt. If you may remember, George, the president of Israel, who is not even in the Likud party, in the so-called liberal Zionists, although I think that's an oxymoron, Herzog himself, they will get no water, no food, etc., etc., etc. Do you recall that, George? In fact, he was one of the first of the Israeli leadership.
And I saw him signing the bombs. He was signing his names on the bombs.
Oh, yes. So, George, wait, my point is this. We had that was part of the Israeli way of war, the immoral IDF. And let me tell you something, George. We have seen at least 5 to 6 cycles from the time of 2023 of Israel using starvation as a weapon of war. George, you will also recall that Joseph Borrell, the so-called foreign minister of the EU, I think it had to have been in the first quarter of 2024. He stunned all of the Anglo-American elites and the rest of them by stating publicly that Israel was using starvation as a weapon of war. That was in 2024. The only difference here, George, is that they've taken it up a notch. But let me also say this, George. All of those Western leaders from 2023, particularly from these countries, France, with Macron, he's been around a long time. In Germany with Merz and Scholz, and that foreign minister. Oh, my God. And now she's got some position in the United Nations. That is an abomination. Britain with Rishi Sunak, Cameron, and now Starmer, the duplicitous one, and Biden, of course, and the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Anthony Blinken. They are all war criminals. All of them. And no matter what Starmer comes out with his little duplicitous rhetoric, no matter what France's Macron says, or those who may support that position about recognizing Palestine, all fine and well. But even if they succeed in helping to turn the tide, they would still be war criminals the day after. They have done their dirty work. Let me give you an example of that. I don't want to take too much time here, George.
Rolf, no, we don't have much time left, but that's the best call of the night. I'm giving you that award. In fact, me and the wife and kids will come out to Bermuda to stay at your place on the beach in order to present you with the award of the best call of the night. So don't be a stranger. Come back again, because I need to get as many calls in as I can before my good wife gives me the social media roundup. Tyrone is in California on Israel. Go ahead, Tyrone.
Hi, George. Nice to talk to you again.
And you, sir?
I wanted to talk to about the roots of the what I prefer to call the failed Zionist experiment. And, the roots are, like is becoming apparent so much all over the world now, gangsterism. We're basically run by gangsters. It's become very clear that, one of the core gangster beliefs, which, you could argue that these immigrants that were under attack, they could be justified in believing that, killing your enemies will make everything okay, But that's it's gone into Hollywood. All the Hollywood movies teach you that. And one of the big tricks of these gangsters, which are the roots of this one of the roots of the Zionist project, you could argue the bankers are gangsters too, is the use of this old biblical name, which we all know, to name the project, which was a great trick. And every time we repeat it, we play into that trick. And it is a trick, and it's part of the reason they're able to get all these rubes, these, Scofield Bible Christians, to think that they're doing something biblical by supporting this gangster project. And a couple weeks ago, Jeffrey Sachs. I have an idea for the name. It's based on the New York gangs. Maybe you can guess it. The more appropriate name for this project. And I was surprised to hear Jeffrey Sachs land on the same name as me. Can you guess what name it is? It's one of the old New York gangs.
No. No, but I'm intrigued.
It's Murder Incorporated. You know, it's
Murder
the worst
Inc.
of the New York gangs.
Murder Inc.
Murder Inc. Yeah, which is I think would be a more appropriate name than using this and playing into this trick of using a biblical name for the gangster project, the failed Zionist experiment.
Yeah, quite so, and that's very well pointed out, Tyrone. The madness of Christian Zionism is simply beyond my comprehension. Maybe I didn't get educated long enough. Maybe I'm deficient somehow. But it is such an oxymoron. It is such a monstrosity of an idea. And the flames of Taibe, the murdered in the Church of the Holy Family in Gaza, the imprecations of the Catholic hierarchy in the country, in the region, and the Holy Father himself is incapable of shifting the dial of the so-called Christian Zionists. It is something that I'm completely unable to comprehend. Karaoke Stars 5064 says Jeremy Corbyn and George Galloway will change the face of British politics. Labour, Reform and the Conservatives are like rabbits in the headlight at the prospect. Well, I very much hope that that happens. Annette Coughlin 6852 says Lamy stated that he was proud of the Balfour Declaration, a sickening behaviour. Zionists are the root of all evil. And David Marston 207 says Winston Churchill referred to the Palestinian people as a lesser grade race. He certainly did so by implication indeed. Prosthetic Anger 1997 says, would the Greenham Common women have been considered terrorists under this new Labour legislation? It stinks. They certainly would have been. And Nathan Dunning 7150 says the UK has a WEF problem. All of the PMs are hand-picked, groomed and installed by the WEF. Elections are rigged. Let's go to Texas, probably the last call. Prince is in Texas on Gaza and US politics. Always a pleasure, Prince. What have you got to say?
Yes, sir, George. How are you doing, sir?
Good evening.
Yeah, I want to make some very quick points. So the first one I want to make is about the American political landscape. Can you imagine, George, if someone told you maybe 3-4 years ago that the people who will be speaking out against the carnage we are watching, because that's the only word for it, the carnage we are watching in Gaza, will be Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey. These are the far-right Nazis we're told. You know, they're so-called progressive.
Very good point.
You know,
very good point.
People like AOC and the other ones, they cannot take it upon themselves. People like Candace Owens, they lose a lot more by actually taking a stand on this issue. But the normal people who are so-called the woke people, none of them can even stick their necks out. The other point I want to make is, can you imagine if somebody killed 70,000 dogs? If someone killed 70,000 dogs, can you imagine how the treatment they'll get in the Western sphere? But yet we have people who have killed. The word 70,000, I just think it's even just a camouflage. I think it's way more than that. I mean, the way they treat these people is worse than dogs. I mean, so is it that, you know, what about their humanity? And then the last point I have to make is that what is the point of the United Nations? I always keep on asking that question because, I mean, I hear all these nice speeches. What is especially the global southern countries, what are they doing at the United Nations? Because it's clear that the United Nations is useless. It's useless. So why don't they just offer
it's a great gig. Yeah, Prince, it's a great gig for the diplomats that are sent there. It's a platform for the political leaders who fly in and out momentarily to take the stage at the United Nations. But you're right, to all intents and purposes, it is now practically defunct. It cannot continue in its current way. I'm an advocate of setting up a new United Nations. I think the BRICS, the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Global South, the people of the marginalized, the excoriated, the people who are routinely insulted and routinely subverted. These are the people who have to form a new international forum. It cannot be in New York City, where people are being refused visas to go to the United Nations to do their work and to speak. On that subject, by the way, how can America run the World Cup football tournament when they're refusing visas to people from countries that have a legitimate right to participate in the World Cup? It has to get out of the United States, get out of New York City. It needs to be in a neutral place, and it needs complete overhaul without vetoes by countries who have the right to veto only because they possess nuclear weapons. Now, on the earlier point that you made, Prince, I saw this made in the last day or two. Even the dogs in Gaza, feasting on all that decaying, decomposing human flesh, are now themselves like Belsen horrors. They are skeletons still walking, at least for now. When someone made the point, I think I read it yesterday, it may even have been from you, you would not treat dogs like this. If someone did a documentary and showed the circumstances that the Palestinians in Gaza are in, if they made a documentary about dogs in the same situation, being massacred, being starved, dying of thirst, with not a single vet left still standing, hundreds of thousands, millions of dogs in danger of dying of famine, nobody in the world would put up with it. That siege would have been broken already. People would have been breaking down the doors of Rafah to get food and water into the dogs. But we're allowing it for little children, humans, their mothers, their fathers, their siblings, their grandparents are being starved to death in a way that we would never tolerate if they were horses or if they were dogs. Just think about that. Last call is Eve in Florida on Russia. Eve, it's always a pleasure and good to hear from you again. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Here is, I see the war coming in Europe, and I'm going to see you how I see it coming. I'm going to draw two comparisons, and it's a little mathematical, but I think it's accurate. India and Europe have about the same energy need. India imports $80 billion a year of energy, and about 80% of it. Same with Europe. When the Indians were approached about the secondary sanction, India said, well, you know, we have 80 billion to spend on energy. We have a country of 1.4 billion people. We need stability. And it's out of the question that we follow the United States. We need to be able to buy relatively inexpensive energy from Russia because we have an horizon of about, let's say, 10 years, like most politicians. What about Europe? Europe, like India, imports all its energy. And in 2022, the expense of the European Union for energy was about $80 billion. It's a country which is half populated as India. It's about 600. But you see, it's the same order of magnitude. They don't have energy themselves. And if they would be interested in an horizon of about 10 years, they would say it's out of the question that our energy bill go 3 or 4 times bigger. But it's exactly what happened. Van der Leyen told Trump, we will buy $250 billion of energy from you. What does it mean? It means that the horizon, it's not a long time. It means that Trump, on the other side, must have committed for something, which is their military support for a war in Europe. And it may come from Kaliningrad, from the Baltic somewhere, but it is coming. And today I call all my family in France, and I told them, you have to prepare a plan B. It is coming. Europe cannot pay them debt. Their debt. They will pay it only through a war by taking all the assets from the people who hold the bond, in fact. And that's what I wanted to tell you.
Well, you've said it very powerfully. It will be the subject of our show on Sunday. I completely agree with you that the war in Europe is coming. I even agree that it may come around the question of Kaliningrad or from the Baltics, but I believe that the war is coming. We have no plan B. We have nowhere that we can go. And in any case, in a nuclear war, which is how it would end, the living shall envy the dead. Far better to have perished in the first flash of the nuclear blast than to be a zombie dying in agony and slowly in the aftermath of it. So we have nowhere to go. We are ready to meet our Maker, and everyone should make themselves ready to meet their Maker. World War III may very well be just around the corner. Gayatri is with me tonight in the studio, well, not quite literally sitting next to me, but in the same building, close enough. Gayatri, what's rattling?
Hi, good evening to all. I wanted to follow up on your first guest, John Hurson, and the subject of aid convoys, which you yourself have been leading for some decades, actually. And as we often have repeated on our show, it is our duty as normal human beings to speak up against this genocide that we are watching in real time on our screens. Convoys are the next level. Convoys are not for everyone. So many flotillas, Gaza freedom flotillas, have gone and tried to break the siege, the illegal blockade on Gaza, bringing aid, bringing food, bringing medicine, bringing stuffed animals to the people of Gaza, including big names like Greta Thunberg and members of parliament from France and other European countries. Now, one of the recent one is the handala boats, and handala being named after that symbol. You may recognize it. It was a symbol created by a Palestinian cartoonist in '69, actually, Naji al-Ali, and it was actually a self-portrait of himself when the Nakba happened in '48. So this flotilla, yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, there you go. So this boat, the handala, went. This is the most recent one that went, and this week, 21 of them, journalists, activists from all over the world: Australia, Scandinavia, France, Italy, Tunisia, Morocco, America, 21 of them were intercepted on international waters. And you mentioned earlier in the comment, one of them was chrissmalls. chrissmalls and the other one, Hatem Aouni, are the only two left still detained in the Israeli prisons. And as your comment has made clear, in very dire circumstances, tortured, choked. They're situated in extreme heat, lack of hygiene, well, everything you can imagine they do to Palestinians, they do onto them as well. But a note about chrissmalls, he is the American still kept prison in Israeli prisons. He is not just a hero for manning up to go and commit this convoy. He is a leader within the American labor movement. He founded the very first Amazon workers union and a very successful strike in 2022. And he became a media darling. He was mentioned in the 100 most influential people of 2022. He had visits to the White House under the Biden administration, pictured with President Biden. He was parading often with AOC and all that, media darling, until, of course, he starts speaking about Palestine. That's when he dropped. And that's why this American hero, still detained in an Israeli prison in the most horrific circumstances, is not deserving of any headline news in the American media, which is, well, what can we say? We know it. Influencers from America mostly are putting the pressure on American citizens, and all around the world to have him released. But this touches the subject, as you said, on racism in Israel. And gosh, are they racist? Obviously towards the Palestinian, but very clearly also towards the Africans. Now, we all have heard about stories of African Jews that immigrated, mostly from Ethiopia, but there's a substantial number from Uganda as well. They're called the Awudaya, and they all went to Israel. But many of them are just denied citizenship. And in one testimony I read from this Ugandan Jew is because they were not practicing Judaism enough. Compare and contrast it with any other white European converting to Judaism and just, flying in free collars in Israel. And we've heard stories about Israel administrating birth control injection without consent on the African Jews in Israel. So racist, yes, very clear. And from everywhere, from all parts, the ministers, the rabbis making very clear and inflammatory comments. In China, on the other hand, the Africans that migrate to the country experience a whole different experience. And you will see more and more reels and feeds and videos of Africans moving to China, being embraced by the Chinese people, and them learning and integrating and being integrate part of society. Compare and contrast again. So, yeah, I just wanted to give you that piece because it was just...
Well, it's really, I mean, I know Israel better than most people. I frequently visited there. I had many friends there. I lived in an apartment on Shankin Street near to Dizengoff Square in Tel Aviv. I knew many real heroes, refuseniks who refused to join the Israeli army, refused to invade Lebanon, refused to serve in the occupied territories, and so on. Yesh Gvul was the name of the organization with which I was associated. And so I know a lot about Israeli society. And one of the first things that I learned was the absolute domination of racist ideas in Israeli society. Not just racism against black people, whom their rabbis have You've got them on the internet everywhere, calling black people monkeys and talking in the most fantastically derogatory way about black people, but racist against other Jews, as you just adumbrated. They were convicted, the government of Israel, of forcefully, secretly injecting Ethiopian Jews with the birth control to stop them forever reproducing. The black Jews are fifth-class citizens, but guess what? The Eastern Jews, Sephardic Jews, that were run out of Spain and Portugal and found sanctuary amongst the Muslims in North Africa, those Jews are regarded as second-class, maybe third-class Jews in Israel. For them, these Ashkenazi European converts to Judaism are the only Jews that really matter. And they're the people who are in total control of the state. They are always the prime minister. They are always the head of the army. They are always the head of the great institutions, such as they are within the state of Israel. I tell you, this is a European colonial settler state, identical in every other regard to the European settler colonial states of Nyasaland, Rhodesia, South Africa. Exactly the same kind of people with exactly the same kind of mentality. That we, your betters, are here to settle your country, and our supremacy will not be challenged until it is. Gayatri, let's get out for chips. We've still got time. Thanks very much for that social media review. 24,160 people voted, and overwhelmingly 3/4 of them believe Donald Trump is going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. For me, it's the easiest question since, is the Pope a Catholic? Well, I'll be back, God willing, on Wednesday for the midweek show, and we'll almost certainly be in a state of real danger of war on the Eastern Front. We're going to concentrate on that. Thanks very much for being with me. Tell your friends you had a good time on the Mother of All Talk Shows.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Go get 'em, George.